Shamangelic Healing podcast is designed as a platform to share authentic conversations about real life issues, providing you with valuable resources and tools to support you in shining your most authentic self, creating a thriving life that you absolutely love, and to support you in manifesting your soul's mission. Hi, this is Anahata Ananda, certified high performance coach, shamanic healer, and soul guide. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing podcast with Anahata Ananda. And today we're going to dive into ayahuasca. Is it a medicine or is it a poison? Pros and cons. We're going to really unpack all about this because I have so many clients inquiring about, should I do it? Should I not do it? Is it beneficial? Is it harmful? And what are my suggestions on that? And so Ryan Cornett is my guest today, and we're going to have a deep, authentic discussion on the pros and cons to help you navigate whether or not it's the right fit for you. So thank you for tuning in. Please like and share it if you love this podcast, and let's begin. Welcome to the Shamangelic Healing podcast with Anahata Ananda, and I'm here with a dear, beautiful soul brother, Ryan Cornett, and we are just going to dive into all about ayahuasca and whether it's a medicine or a poison. So glad to have you back.
Grateful to be back here in Sedona. We got some snow in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
That was beautiful. Last time we were on the land, you and I had a great hike and we dove into this topic, plant medicine. When is it a medicine? When is it a poison? So break down ayahuasca for us. What is ayahuasca? How can it be used? The popularity it has right now. Tell us more about it, please.
So thanks for that. We had this deep conversation, and that's kind of why we wanted to share it with the audience, is because so many people ask me about that. As a shamanic healer and soul guide, it's one of the questions that I get a lot. Where do I go? Is it going to work for me? Is it safe? And there's definitely pros and cons. It can be a medicine. Ayahuasca can be a medicine, and in a shamanic tradition, a medicine is deemed something that leaves you more whole. The natives called something a medicine if it was leaving you more whole, and deemed it a poison if it did not leave you more whole. And so depending on how you orient to ayahuasca, whether or not you're going to it with the right intention, in the right setting, and in the right time, it can definitely be a medicine. And if not, if any of those things are off, it can definitely be a poison if not used properly.
So you're using the term medicine. This means I can go to my local corner store and pick up a vial of ayahuasca, go home, take it, wait 30 minutes and see what happens.
Right. So let's just go into the basics about what it is. Now, ayahuasca is a plant. It's a vine, actually, that is grown in the jungles of the Amazon. Primarily in Peru. That's where we hear about ayahuasca, people going to Peru to have the plant medicine ceremonies, and now the vine is being brewed and brought into the States and other places so that you have more access to it, which we're going to talk about where that's beneficial and where it's not.
Okay.
And it's a powerful, powerful plant, and that's why this particular plant has been assigned by Mother Nature a guide, a steward, known or called an ayahuasquero. In Peru, an ayahuasquero is someone that studies the vine, knows how it grows it themselves, harvests it themselves, brews it themselves, prepares it and disseminates it. And they're also, a traditional ayahuasquero is there not only to prepare the medicine, to prepare the offering, but also to prepare the space in a ceremonial way, and also to hold the container, because it's going to elicit darkness. It's going to elicit, density out of people and in the space. And a true ayahuasquero is also trained in how to hold the container really clear and really safe, as well as being the one that helps with integration and explaining the visions and the experience, and really the space holder. And not everybody is trained in all of those aspects, and that's where it can go a little bit sideways.
You and I talked about that. Setting, intention,
Yeah.
integration. Probably the most important things when you're exploring with these medicines. They're very powerful medicines, and it's not something you want to do in your apartment by yourself because you're not sure where that medicine is going to take you. And let's talk about that. Setting and intention. This isn't something that you want to get a group of friends with and go on a hike and you're sitting on the top of a mountain and you pull out a water bottle full of your ayahuasca. You don't want to drink this on top of a mountain. What is the proper set? What is the proper setting? Who are we looking for? Do we just go to Peru and drive up and look for the guy that's holding the sign that says ayahuasca this way, $5?
Right. So I tell people to ask these questions. So I literally just had somebody, a dear friend, a client, ask me, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to Peru. Should I do this? I respect your opinion." And I get to see the benefits of where ayahuasca has really been beneficial for someone. And what you don't hear on social media, what you don't see is people saying, "Hey, I had a really bad experience. I got taken advantage of. It opened fissures in my psyche. I came back definitely not integrated, not whole." And so in this podcast, I really wanted to bring some truth about where it can go sideways and why. So I tell people to ask these questions. Number one, are you personally called to this medicine, to this plant? Are you personally called? Not like, "Oh, all my friends are doing it, so I'm just gonna go to this ceremony that I heard about Friday night." This isn't the kind of thing I feel that you should just go with what everybody else is doing. I think it's a deep soul calling, and the first question for me is, are you personally called to this plant at this time? And I think that's something that I can't answer for anybody. You can't answer. Your best friend can't answer to you, because you may be called to this plant, but not at this time. And so I think the first question is, am I deeply called to this? Not just I'm curious and everybody else is doing it, so what the hell? I'm interested.
It's like a badge of honor right now in the spiritual community and the conscious community is, "Oh, I've drank ayahuasca."
How many times have you done it?
You haven't drank ayahuasca before?
Right.
You haven't tried ayahuasca? Exactly. So we've got that. The first thing is getting clear on, am I being called to this medicine? Yeah. Is it my time?
Right. So is it my time is the second one. So, am I called to the medicine is the first question, because then it goes to timing. And if I'm called, is this the right time? Because you might be hearing about all of these different offerings or ceremonies, or I got to go to Peru, or I heard this guy had this experience, or I heard about it on a podcast, or my best friend just came back from a ceremony and it changed their life. And so the second thing is this the right time? Because I had personally, I knew that at some point it was going to come into my, it was going to come in and be the time. But I was offered many times before I was like, yeah, it's time. And listening to that, is this the right time? Because there's probably going to be lots of opportunities, and you need to sit with, is it now? So that's the second question. Is it now? The third is, who is the facilitator? And I cannot emphasize this enough. All are not created equal. Some are shamans and ayahuasqueros, and some are just a drug dealer with a rattle. I'm just going to be super honest, because the impeccability and integrity of the facilitator is essential to you having a safe experience, because you're literally going to be leaving your body, opening your psychic field for somebody else to protect and guide you through that journey. And you want somebody that you can trust, and you want somebody that is in integrity. And unfortunately, here's the downside, because so many people are drawn to it and they're so curious about it. People that are not in integrity, that are just going after it for the money, and especially down in Peru and here in the States, are like, wow, I could work hard and be a farmer, or I can put up a sign that says ayahuasca. Even if I'm not trained, I can buy it in a jug, and I can just take people's money and hold the space, sit over in the corner and be on my phone and not hold the space. or not be in integrity, or not be trained in how to keep the space clear. And this is where I think I do a lot of cleanup work after ceremonies, because people come back and the container wasn't held properly. The ayahuasca, or the person disseminating the medicine, wasn't clear, and people aren't left more whole. Their fissures, their psyche's distorted, and it wasn't integrated properly. One of my clients came after a ceremony that was just down in Phoenix last year, and half of the people that were going through their journey, halfway through the ceremony, the person disseminating it was like, okay, we're all good, we're done. And people were still tripping, people were still having their experience, and they're like, okay, we're closing up shop. And not even staying and stewarding people through the whole experience. And I think one of the most important parts about being a real ayahuasquero is the integration piece.
Absolutely.
And a real disseminator of this medicine will help guide you through not only the process, but what were your visions? What does it mean? The interpretation, not unlike somebody that does dream interpretation. They're trained to explain the symbols, if this animal came in, or if this person came in, or if this color came in, what it means, and how to help you navigate what you saw and what you experienced into your everyday life. And I think that's so important. And I've had so many sessions from people that were like, I didn't know what was happening, I didn't feel safe, it ended too early, there wasn't integration, or I came out with this like fear, dementia, because you're opening up the portals to higher consciousness. And if it's not held properly, you can definitely mess with your psyche and your consciousness. And this is not what you hear about on social media. People are like, oh yeah, I overdosed, or I didn't have a good experience, because people are embarrassed about it.
And this can stir up traumas that people have had in their past as well. These traumas that are suppressed, that we don't want to go back to think about. All of a sudden we do this plant medicine, it opens us up. We have a full-on dream, livid dream of the experience that we had in our life. That's where integration is so integral. Yeah. Because once we've had this experience, we say, wow, that was overwhelming. How can I go back to my 9-to-5 job knowing this trauma that I just, uncovered here? So with integration, a lot of times you'll have actually trained physicians, therapists that can sit down with you and speak you through this shadow, this trauma, this past experience, how to integrate that back into your life, so hey, listen, there's a wound here, the wound is open, but here's how we can move forward to heal this wound and grow stronger from that.
That's where the facilitator is so important, because they're also playing that role, because ayahuasca is going to bring up the shadow. I mean, it's a shamanic experience. It's going to show you fears, it's going to show you doubts, it's going to show you insecurities, and having a steward, a real shaman that can walk you into the shadow and back, and bring you back. And that's the part where it's not just, oh, I want to see all of this scary shit, but also, how do I come back from it? How do I learn from it? How do I feel safe in the process, so that I'm not just ripping open this wound and not learning how to make sense of what I just saw? Because you will most likely be brought to a place of fear or pain or trauma to look at it and to address it. Maybe when you were 7 or 12 or 22 or 35 weren't able to do that. Now it's giving you the opportunity to go back and do that. And having a clear facilitator that knows how to go into shadow and help you through that process is really important. In Peru, another dear friend of mine, was down there not that long ago, and was witnessing how many of the locals are, their shadow is coming out to take advantage of women, to take advantage of people that are so hungry to accelerate their process, and they're using other things in the ayahuasca, and some really dark, heavy manipulation to kind of lure people into financially engaging them, and even sexually, like there's some dark stuff happening down there.
Yeah, drug mints, the datura.
Yeah.
The datura flower, which is a very powerful plant medicine. I've heard experiences where they mix that into the ayahuasca brew because people want such profound experience that when they come down there, these facilitators say, hey, let's put the most powerful plant in the mix because we want them to really have
this powerful experience.
out-of-body experience. Whereas that's where, like you said, the facilitator is so important, because the best facilitators that I've sat with the medicine, they always say it's the medicine doesn't heal you, you heal you. Right. The medicine just allows you to open up and be receptive to it, right. to be an open vessel. So it's not about, hey, how much ayahuasca can I drink and let me put that badge of honor on my chest and on my shoulder. It's more about how little can I drink and be able to work with this medicine to work past these blockages or these shadow areas or these limiting beliefs that I have. How little can I drink and move past that?
That's exactly why a real ayahuasquero is assigned to the plant to be the doser for you, so that you're not the doser.
Exactly.
So that, in my experience, when I was in Peru, the medicine man that I work with, he scans everybody that day to decide, do you even need the medicine? Where the ego will say, yeah, I need the medicine, I need this, and that.
And they will tell people, you're not drinking today.
Exactly.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so I really respect the integrity that, a drug dealer will say yes because you have your $100.
Yeah.
Right? And the ego will say, yes, I want more, I want it faster. And that's why it's so valuable to have an integrity facilitator, a steward saying, let me scan your energy field to see, first of all, do you need to take ayahuasca today? Second, if so, which dose? The ayahuasquero that I worked with, he had a whole apothecary of jars with different brews, because in Peru, there's the old vines, there's the young vines, this one's brewed differently, these are brewed together, and each has different effects. Mm-hmm. And so from years and years of experience and reading someone's energy field and listening to the spirit of the plant, they'll intuit which vial to pull off for that night's ceremony and who needs to stand out, who needs to say, no, your medicine is to sit under the stars tonight. Your medicine is to really go deep with this issue without the plant. And I respect that integrity so much. And that's why I will say, someone that is not in integrity or not trained to read energy or be in discerning or have those options is not necessarily having your best interest at heart. Now, that being said, and also the ayahuasquero will also be in charge of the dose. So do you need it? Scanning. I watched my medicine man scan everybody, and I was like, I am in the right place.
I've seen this.
Beautiful. It is beautiful. And okay, here's this.
And they'll actually say blessings into your individual medicine that can conduct how that medicine is going to affect you and your experience. That's when you know you have a true ayahuasquero, because they don't just say, here you go, drink up. They will look at the medicine, they'll look at you, they'll look in your eyes. And I've seen it Anahata Ananda. I've seen him say this. He says, no, look in my eyes. And he will tell you, watch me. Right. And he goes like this, and he'll look down, and then he'll sing a blessing, maybe a little mapacho, put a blessing on that medicine, and here you are.
And dose it. Because he's he's taking into a lot of different, he or she is taking into consideration a lot of different factors and dose it for you. The ego will be like, I want a double shot. And it's not like tequila. Not that a double shot of tequila is the best always either. Yeah. But because this isn't about more, it's about what you need. Mm-hmm. And whether you need it at all. And so that's something that's really valuable.
Something else that I've heard is, one of the taitas that I watched work, one of the ayahuasqueros, he would say, he had a translator speaking in Spanish, and he would say, I'm sure everyone here has watched the YouTube videos. And he said, I want you to forget everything that you've watched and everything you've heard. He said, the visions are a distraction. You're not here for the visions. You're here to go within for the internal experience. The visions, they're beautiful, but they can distract you from getting the medicine that you actually need. This medicine allows you to receive what you need individually.
Right. And, having the right space allows you to access that.
Feel
So
uncomfortable.
yeah, so absolutely is let's talk a little bit about the experience. So ayahuasca is meant as a purging substance. So on the physical level, it's likely to create a purge of toxins in the body. Not only physically, that's why most places will have a bucket, you know, and you're like, oh, well, that's disgusting, that's gross. And it's just like, yeah, if that trips you up and it's not your thing, then it's probably not the right experience for you, because it is going to create, likely for most people, a purging effect where you're vomiting, which can be associated with emotional and energetic densities that you're also purging. So that has a powerful impact.
There's all different types of purges as well. You could be going to the bathroom. Some people cry tears of joy. I've heard yawning, stretching,
screaming, laughing, singing, you know, and it's individual, and each experience is going to be totally different, because who you're with, the brew, how much, and where you're at, and what needs to be addressed would be totally different. So the purging process is one of those things, but it is also shifting with your psyche to look at what you need to look at. And this is where being called to it is so important, because you might not be ready for what it's showing you. And if you're really not ready, sometimes fast tracking and trying to force yourself to see something you're really not ready for, then it's hard to integrate it. And so, you know, we kind of integrate things as we need to, and face things as the universe and as life shows us a lesson. And this is fast tracking that. And sometimes that's beneficial to fast track a lesson, and sometimes it's too much information, it's too much, I can't bridge that, or oh, I see this beautiful epiphany, but then I don't know how to make it real in my everyday life. How do I make amends with my father based on what I just experienced? And sometimes it can be so epiphany and so awakening that it ungrounds people. And I've seen this happen a lot, of people dosing way too often. Going
back to the medicine to try to become grounded, where you need to have the integration. Integration isn't just the next day. Integration can be 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just not, oh no, I just need to dose again and dose again, because it's like, well, I was in Peru one time in Cusco, and this, you know, totally spastic guy was like, hey, do you want to come to my ayahuasca ceremony tonight? It's my 222nd ceremony, and I'm so excited, you know, big celebration. I'm like, what the F? You know, it's like, what did you not hear from this powerful plant teacher the first 221 times?
Right.
You know, because then it's more of a badge of ego of like, I did this so many times. And this guy was clearly ungrounded, uncentered, and it was, you know, the intention was more about going so often, and you could just feel and see.
You said it leaves you more whole.
Right. That was not the case.
A medicine isn't something you take every day. A medicine is something you take until you're whole, and then you don't need it anymore.
Exactly. And it's a powerful teaching, and sitting with what is shown or what is felt is where a lot of people are like, wow, that was amazing. Let me just go to it again, instead of let me do the work to how is this going to change my everyday life and bridge what I just experienced up here in the ethers. How does that change how I act in relationship? How does that change how I act in my soul? You know, what it's drawn to. Where do I need to make amends from this trauma or this experience that I caused? Where do I need to make amends for my past? Or where do I need to clear something with somebody? And I think that's where I've seen a lot of people go so much to that experience that it begins to unground them, and they're not able to be here in reality as much.
Absolutely.
You know, and so they're like, oh, I just need to do this more because I see these epiphanies, and they're not able to deal with everyday life and pay the bills and provide for themselves. And I've seen some beautiful, beautiful souls get totally lost in the substance. And it's just, you know, it's hard, you know, because I just see the fissures creating in their psyche, in their brain, where they're just starting to unground so much that they're just not here anymore. Like brilliant, beautiful beings. Brilliant, beautiful beings.
You talk about the roots. You even talked to me about this last night, about letting those roots take hold.
Yeah.
Obviously, you and I have those dreams and those ambitions. However, we need to make sure that those roots are deep down, so when the winds of change come, we're still able to bear those fruits. You have to have those roots. If you want to go bear the fruit, before you start to bear the fruit and go up into this etheric, metaphysical, spiritual, third eye opening realm, you need to make sure you have a foundation there before you put a roof on your house, right? Absolutely. Which brings me to another topic that is hardly ever addressed. You know, I'm very passionate about nutrition. Here's something I think is rarely talked about: the dieta. The dieta of a minimum of 2 weeks before and generally 2 weeks afterwards. There's specific diets and lifestyle factors that are recommended so that you can become focused and have a clear intention of, why am I coming here and how am I going to utilize this going forward? Yeah. For example, one of the number one things they ask you to avoid is alcohol. Yeah. Alcohol, and then you're going to work down the chain of sugars, spicy foods, coffee, and cleanse the body out. I think it's so important, because when we talk about integration, like I said, integration doesn't just last one day. Well, guess what? When you have this dieta, this is a foundation that after your experience, you can stay rooted. So you're not drinking tons of coffee and you're stimulated, your anxiety is rampant, or you're not turning to alcohol to start to try to sedate the experience that you just had. The dieta is that foundation that you can take away that helps with integration and helps keep you grounded, rooted, centered, full of energy to overcome these obstacles and to move forward.
So just to explain a little bit about dieta is a cleansing or fasting protocol engaged to prepare you for the ceremony. So you're clearing your body, you're preparing your temple to receive, and that goes into really understanding to come to this with reverence and respect. Just like, oh no, it's a Friday night, I'm just doing this, and not coming with a level of respect and preparation. There are a lot of beautiful plant medicine teachers that are not, in the jungle, that are taking the ceremonial aspect of this to other levels of preparation and sacredness. You don't necessarily have to be in Peru to be an ayahuasquero, and that are taking a level of sacredness, preparation, and a whole integration protocol. And I invite people to seek out those kind of facilitators that are taking it to that level of awareness and intention and preparation and integration. So that goes back to, yes, dieta, super valuable to prepare. That goes back to, so I said, first of all, am I called? Number 2, is this the right time? Number 3, is this the right facilitator? Absolutely. That is in integrity, that is sacred, that reveres the plant, and also can hold the container and is phenomenal with integration? Yes. And also, is it the right space? So that's my 4th question, is it the right container? I did, someone here actually in Sedona was holding a retreat. Somebody came in and they had a wonderful retreat, and every couple days they were doing ayahuasca, and I had half of the people from that retreat knocking on my door for integration. Not only integration, but they said the container wasn't being held not only by the person, but they rented a house here, and the container, what was in the space wasn't clear, and so I had half of the people, like there were 12 people that were going to that particular retreat. I had half of them knocking on my door because one of the co-facilitators knew me and was like, whoa, this was not the right container. This was not the facilitator, did not hold this space clear. One person was spinning it out. They didn't know how to handle it, and it affected everybody. And so the container, the location, is it a clear anchored space? Is there an altar?
About on top of a mountaintop. That's a safe place, right?
Yeah.
On top of a mountaintop, on a cliff edge. It's probably not the best place to engage in a ceremony, right?
Right. Well, and or where it's self-administered. That's where you're not having an ayahuasca. So I another time in a very like rustic outdoor setting in hot springs, people are just dosing without a facilitator. That it's just coming in a jug that's being shipped across borders. I'm like, hey, that's a little precarious, first of all, to not know what is in that jug. And also, what's the right dose, and my ego can overdose, and I haven't assigned a guardian and a safe space to keep it clear. And that person was tripping out in the desert by water and sitting in hot springs cooking themselves because they were tripping, and the container wasn't right. And so number 4 to me is the space. Is it held? Is it safe? Is it clear? And the 5th thing that I think is super vital is, who are these other people that I'm going to be having this experience with? Because some people are really spun out, really not grounded. And if the facilitator doesn't know how to handle someone, when you start opening the fissures of their psyche and they're not able to keep your energy clear from their stuff, other people take it on. And I know people think, oh, that's not possible. Look, my shamanic training and 2 decades of shamanic experience is 100% true, that you can absolutely take on entities and darkness from somebody else. And so when I was discerning about when I was going to be doing ayahuasca, one of the big deterrents was not with those people. The facilitator was cool, the space was clear, but I was just like, no, I just don't feel like this is the right container of people that I want to be doing this with. And I also want to trust that ayahuasquero so much that they can keep my energy field and my psyche. Like your brain is such a fragile chemistry. And, to leave it unattended, your psychic, energy, you really want to be able to trust that person to keep somebody else's shadow or density or trauma from coming into your body. It is very real.
To guide you on your own journey.
To guide you. And so I think the quality and the impeccability of the intention and the awareness and the sacredness of the group of people that you are potentially journeying with, I think is very important. Because that can be pulled off by just one person. And I've seen that happen many times and had to do, like I say, I just call it cleanup work after so many ceremonies. And it says one guy just went totally berserk and it affected everybody's experience, and the person didn't know how to deal with it, or I felt affected by their experience, and didn't know how to integrate the trauma that they were processing. I took it on. So that's super important with who you're with. And the 6th thing is intention. Just like you were saying, the sacredness, the reverence, the dieta. Why am I going to this plant? What is my deep question? What am I looking for? And am I humble enough and trusting enough to say, hey, Mother Ayahuasca, can you show me what I'm ready to see? Am I coming to it as a student? Am I coming open? Am I coming courageous and vulnerable to allow whatever is to come up? If I'm held by a yes in those other 5 questions, then is my intent pure? Then we know if you're a yes with all of those, then whatever comes up, whatever experience you have is meant to be what you need to have. And even if it is some scary thing that you need to face, or a purging that you weren't quite ready for, or you saw something that you didn't know was there, and are you ready to face those fears? Because if you really are not, then don't go there. You've got to be willing to be the student and willing to be shown, and not fight it, but to allow it in.
Absolutely.
And if all of those other questions are there, and the container and the teacher, and it's the right time, then you get to show up for what is coming.
Absolutely. Is there any specific situations that you would say you would not recommend this person take ayahuasca? Obviously, if you're on medications, if there's psychological issues, if there's bipolar disorder, these may be times where you don't want to come to this medicine, where talking to a therapist, using some of the more foundational principles maybe stronger before you ever consider going into this
Right.
metaphysical, etherical realm and opening the floodgates of, hey, let me stare at my subconscious.
Right.
It might not be the time for those people.
Yeah, and this is where, just because everybody's like, oh, this was the best experience ever, your psychology, your brain chemistry
Completely
is
different.
totally different. We can have the same dose and have completely different
I've seen it happen.
experiences.
I've
And
seen
everyone's like, oh, this is the
I've
best
seen the
medicine.
biggest military veteran take a sip and go into psychosis and be rattling on the floor, shaking on the floor, and the shaman have to go over there and take care of him and facilitate his experience.
Which is what he's supposed to do.
Exactly.
And that may be exactly what he's ready for. And that may be the experience that he needs. And so to not be in that assumption that all experiences are created equal. It's only a medicine if it's all of those questions. So to answer your question, if somebody is already dealing with intense PTSD and they haven't yet really dealt with it, I just this summer had a client that had was already really ungrounded and already, dealing with psychological traumas, and he hadn't really gone through other traditional more approaches, non-traditional, but going into, well, let's solve it up here. And it just messed him up. By the time he got to me, he's like, I haven't slept in 3 weeks.
Scary.
And he goes, this trauma came up and up and up, and every night it came up, and I didn't have the counseling support to integrate it, and it definitely amplified his PTSD from some real intense traumas, and we had to go back to a very nurturing space. And what he actually needed was trusting, gentle environments to really help rebuild from the traumas he had experienced.
That lasts longer than one day too. It's not just the next day. For some people, that's, I need to see someone for 7 days straight, or I need a phone contact that every time this comes up for me, I have someone to call. That is true integration. Like we said, integration can last for a year.
Right. And this is more a fiery approach. Ayahuasca is definitely, she is more of a fiery shamaness. And sometimes, depending on, especially if there's a lot of psychoses happening in here, that are distorting, and there's already dementia, there's already bipolar disorder, I would not recommend it in those situations. And I would recommend a little bit more of a less fiery approach that says, wow, with PTSD, with some of these more intense traumas, is like, that's where we need a real gentle and soft to rebuild trust, to reset the nervous system, to come into a safe space so that that person can cry, so that they can scream, so that they can be held. And so for me, what I have experienced in my healing practice is that you also need to know what is going to be really a medicinal approach right now. That's why my healing practice is called Shamangelic Healing, because the shaman might need to be fiery and bold and let's go look at the fears and be that like honest truth.
You have to do that with
I
the first time we talked, actually. You're
like, hey,
kick
bullshit.
the button here. Yeah,
like, hey, this is a
let's go.
lie.
You say you got this dream, let's get rolling.
Yeah, and so sometimes we need that fire, and sometimes we need that water, and sometimes we need that angel, that angelic, that is bringing a softness so that we can feel that tenderness. And sometimes that's going to be the medicine that leaves us more whole. Then we might need to come into, once that feels a little bit more safe and we're in our center, then it's like, hey, come on, let's go. Where can you rebuild your life, and let's start taking some action. And when you're still energizing the trauma of being a victim, then I like to really address that in a nurturing, gentle way to bring forward a safe container so that you can start becoming who you came to be from a place of greater wholeness. And we repair those fissures first before we then start opening the psyche into other things. Because if it's already distorted, if there's already trauma, we all have traumas, let's just be saying. If you have some trauma, don't go to ayahuasca. But also, it might be too fiery, and you might need a softer approach. So I appreciate you asking that, because remember, we want it to leave us more whole. And sometimes that's going to be, really a delicate answer, because in this situation what he needed was gentleness. So he came back from, okay, I'm going to go with fire towards my healing, and it just ripped open the band-aid, just ripped open the wound, and like 3 days straight not sleeping, more trauma, I don't feel safe, and like anxiety, psychosis was starting to amplify way beyond where he started with this ayahuasca. I was like, oh, I did 2 weeks in Costa Rica, and I was like, this was definitely not a medicine.
Yeah.
And too much, too fast, without integration, and too fiery. And somebody else, opening that consciousness, because ayahuasca does have this opportunity to open the psyche to see things that you aren't able to see, which is really valuable at times.
To step beyond those limiting beliefs, those sponsoring thoughts that hold us back. When I explain it to people, I say, it's like you have shadows and you're opening the curtains and saying, ooh, I've been hiding some skeletons in that closet. Now I have to look at eye to eye. And so this is where the area that you specialize in. What are the alternatives? If ayahuasca is not our calling right now, if it's not our time, what are some alternatives that we can use as medicines that will leave us more whole, that maybe down the road we do look to ayahuasca, but for now these are the foundational approaches that are going to leave us more whole in medicine?
This is where I have loved shamanic breathwork, or what I call shamangelic breathwork, because it's a way to take us into deep cathartic releases without opening such psychic fissures in the brain, and it's not creating a different chemistry. It's also very purging, because oxygen, you're not taking in a separate substance other than oxygen. Just deep inhales and exhales is very detoxifying for the brain. It's detoxifying for the physical body. And when you're directing it into the lower emotional energy centers of the body, then you're able to start releasing guilt, anger, sadness, grief from a natural and authentic place. The integration is a lot more immediate, and you're not still tripping for 6 hours or 10 hours.
Exactly.
You have one, shamangelic breathwork situation for like an hour, and then we have another period of time to just, wow, what did you experience? What did you just shift? What did you see? What did you face? Where were your fears? And then also, what did you open into? Because when I do breathwork facilitation, we're clearing the lower energy centers first, like where's the density and like that stuff in the basement that we don't tend to want to look at, to go there first. And then we open into the upper gateways of consciousness and kind of open into, well, if I'm letting go of fear, then I can bring in faith. If I'm letting go of grief, well, I can bring in joy. And so I really like that loop of lower breathing to release density, and then upper chakra, upper consciousness breathing to clear the mind of limiting beliefs and doubts, and then, well, what is possible? Let me see my future self. Let me connect to the divine. And it's a purer, legal, safer way to have a shamanic experience with less of a kind of distortion.
I want to tell you about my first time ever.
Yes, please.
I thought it was bullshit. I thought it was absolute bullshit. I said, there's no way that I'm going to sit here and start breathing and have a profound experience. I was like, I breathe every single day, and I don't have these experiences that people are talking about. So I had a facilitator. He started leading with some holotropic breath work. I started to do it, and at first, just the accuser, the doubter in my mind saying, this is not going to work, this is not going to work. And I said, you know what? Let me reserve my projections and what I expect to happen. Let me put that in the background and just go full force into this and see what happens. My first and second time of doing this, I started doing the deep breathing. I'm laying down. Next thing I know, I am curled up in a ball, crying my eyes out like a little fetus baby, just crying my eyes out, snot pouring out of my nose for hours. It was a 3-hour session, and at the end of it, I had been curled up in a ball crying for an hour and a half. I have no idea why. I wasn't thinking of a trauma I had previously. For whatever reason, when I went into that deep breath work, it released some trauma, some blockage, some shadows, some restriction in me that, hey, you know what? I just needed to let that go. And I think, maybe that masculine, tough exterior that I had, my body said, you know what, it's time to purge.
Good cry.
It's time to purge.
That's definitely, we're going to do, by the way, stay tuned, because we will definitely do whole podcasts just on the benefits of shamangelic breathing and breath work, because that's a whole other, but yeah, that can happen with ayahuasca, and it can also happen with, shamanic breathing or shamangelic breathing. And I have had some of my deepest cries from that place, and also deepest epiphany and rage coming out, grief coming out, not necessarily from one particular experience, but from all of it. Just needing to let go when I didn't have a safe space to do that before. So let's just go into one quick benefit from your experience with ayahuasca. What is a benefit that you took away, and what is maybe a potential downside you saw, and or something to look out for our audience, and I'll share that too.
Absolutely. The first thing was, for me, the word intention. The setting when I came to a true ayahuasca ceremony, there's so much integrity behind every aspect of it. There's a sage smoke bath. There's beautiful facilitators dressed in white that are there to hold the space in the container. It literally, it's palpable. Just the container that you step into. You have an intention. Sometimes there's a fire, and you say a prayer and a blessing, and you offer your sacrament to the fire to set an intention for the ceremony. Okay. To me, before I even drank the medicine, I was already opening up, because the reverence, the intention, the honor and respect for the medicine, it was powerful. Okay. When I drank the medicine, for me, it was self-love. In my personal experience, it was to look at myself for the first time without projection onto myself, and to have self-love and compassion for myself, to say, hey, listen, you're a flawed human, and you can still love yourself for that.
That's beautiful.
Stop trying to be someone you're not. Love yourself and express that love for yourself, because in doing that, other people feel more comfortable loving themselves.
Good.
And integration.
And is there a potential downside or something you want to look out for, or do you feel good with that?
Every topic we discussed, it is setting, container. Is there a trained shaman, ayahuasquero, someone that has reverence for the medicine? Is there someone there that's willing to say, you're not drinking today? I don't want your money. I don't want your money. You're not drinking today. If there's that type of host there that's trained with that impeccability, that's the kind of setting you're looking for.
Good.
What about you? What are some beautiful experiences, or some takeaways, and maybe some areas that you want to watch out for?
I was really able to drop in when I could really trust that I did the due diligence with the who, what, why, where, and so I was prepared to face anything. All of those were green light, and it took me probably 5 years of being offered all of that. No, before I was like, okay, it's time, it's green light. And so all of that prepared me for a very, very deep experience. My first couple experiences were extraordinarily profound. I got to see things and face things and have like my biggest fears come up, and be able to be like, okay, and breathe through it real time. And what is this really about? There was enough preparation in my own personal development that I was able to real time kind of analyze what was happening while it was happening. And had I not done years of kind of doing my own work and my own shadow work, that actually prepared me to see how to face a fear and not have it devour me. And so had I done it years before, I don't think I would have been able to integrate real time while I was in ceremony such a powerful experience, and saying, this is okay, this is an illusion, it isn't. This fear, there's really a benefit, and it's okay. And I just dropped into it's okay. And so that was really powerful. And the other thing that I wasn't expecting at the end was when I was meditating after a sequence of ceremonies one time, and I was sitting with the vine, and I asked the vine, before I was leaving Peru, because I went to where it's grown, to a teacher there in Peru. That's what felt right for me. And since then, in Iquitos in the jungle, there's a lot of shit. You have to be really discerning down there. You don't want to just be like, oh, I'm on a backpack trip and okay, whatever, and go the wrong direction, because there's a lot of charlatans down there and here in the States, and also impeccable, beautiful people. So I'd say that's the shadow aspect I would be concerned with. But in my meditation, I was journaling and drawing. I got so many beautiful epiphanies when I just sat multiple days after my ceremonies down in the jungle and just gave time for integration and just drawing, epiphanies, writing everything that I learned. And when I sat in a closing meditation, not facilitated by anybody, just me going directly to the vine and just saying, hey, Mama Ayahuasca, is there anything else you want me to know? And she goes, our time is complete. She said, you don't ever need to ingest me again. If you have anything you need to ask me, just ask me. I'm already in your blood. I'm already in your consciousness. You don't have to take me in to know me, because you already know me. You've come to me. You're already a student. You already respect me. You've already gotten the lessons that you need. If there's anything else I can answer for you, just ask, she said. You can just sit quietly and create your own dieta and be in that silence and say, show me a fear, show me how to be courageous. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. And so that was over 10 years ago. And I've had many ceremonies with her that had nothing to do with the jungle or an ayahuasquero or ingesting anything, because that's really another plant medicine, is that you don't have to ingest it. You can meditate with it. You can also look at it. You can also touch it, smell it, taste it. There are many ways to interact with a medicine, and it doesn't always have to be ingesting. And so I was like, thank you, because she taught me another way to be with a plant. Absolutely. So good. Wow.
So where can people learn more about this from you?
Okay.
What do you offer?
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So I run a Shamangelic Healing Center right here in Sedona, called Shamangelic Healing, and it's a phenomenal way to dive deep into whatever journey for your soul, whether it's shamanic, whether it's angelic, whether it's a combination. A Shamangelic Healing journey is kind of my signature session. And so shamangelichealing.com is where private sessions, online courses, all of that is here for you. And I'm also going to offer a free gift for everybody today. And that is going to be a guided meditation to an animal spirit guide journey. So that's going to be a really fun free gift if you sign up with the link below. And so we'll provide some free gifts for you. Thank you for listening today. So Ryan, where can people find you and your website and all of that?
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, because you're awesome and I love you.
Beautiful home. This is amazing weather. It's been beautiful. You can find more information on me at dietorliveit.com and on all social media platforms at Ryan Cornett, Cornett. Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in. Please like and share it if you love this podcast.